The first shot did not kill him, and that was the problem. It tore through the kitchen window at 2 to 17 a.m., shattered the framed photograph of their wedding day, and lodged somewhere inside the drywall behind the stove. Elena did not scream. She inhaled sharply, like someone surfacing from deep water, and turned her head toward Daniel with an expression that did not match the sound of gunfire. It was not fear. It was recognition. Daniel was already on the floor before the glass finished falling. "Down," he hissed, though she was still standing, barefoot, wineglass in hand. The second shot came lower, ripping through the cabinet door, spraying splinters across the tile. Only then did she drop, not because he told her to, but because she finally understood that the noise outside had a name. "They found us," Daniel said, though he had no proof of that. He crawled toward her, one hand gripping her ankle too tightly, as if she might dissolve if he let go. "Elena, listen to me. Stay down. Don't move." Her eyes stayed on the window. "You told me they wouldn't," she said quietly. Her voice trembled less than his. The third shot never came. Silence followed, thick and obscene. The refrigerator hummed. A car engine somewhere in the distance turned over and faded. Daniel waited for footsteps, for a door slamming, for the sound of someone finishing what they had started. Nothing. Just the cold night air sliding in through the ruined glass. He rose first. Not fully. Just enough to peer over the counter. The yard looked undisturbed, pale under the street lamp. The gate was still closed. No silhouettes, no movement. If someone had fired, they had done it from the darkness beyond the fence, or from the car that was now gone. He stood too quickly. Elena grabbed his wrist. "Don't," she whispered. "I have to check," he said. And the tone he used was not about safety. It was about control. He needed the outside world to make sense. He needed an enemy he could locate. Without one, the threat became abstract. And Daniel had always been terrified of abstract things. He moved to the door, opened it with slow precision, and stepped onto the porch. The air smelled like metal. He scanned the street. Empty. The neighboring houses remained dark, indifferent. He felt suddenly foolish, like an actor who had missed his cue. Behind him, Elena stood in the doorway despite his instructions. "Daniel." He turned. She was holding the shattered photograph. The glass had cut her palm. Blood streaked across her wrist in thin lines. She did not seem to notice. "They shot through us," she said. "What?" "Not at us. Through us." He frowned. "That doesn't make sense." "It does." Her gaze dropped to the image in her hand. The two of them on the beach 5 years ago. Laughing. Sunburned. Untouched. The bullet hole had taken out his face. He stepped toward her. "Elena, stop. You're spiraling." "Am I?" she asked, and her eyes finally met his. "Because I remember you saying they wouldn't come here, that we were invisible." "We are." She let out a small laugh that had no humor in it. "Invisible people don't get shot at." He reached for the photograph. She pulled it back. "Give it to me," he said, sharper now. "No." "Elena." "Why was it our window?" she pressed. "Why tonight?" He hesitated half a second too long. Her breathing changed. "You knew." "I didn't know this," he snapped. "I knew it was possible. There's a difference. You told me it was over. It was supposed to be." She stared at him as if she had never seen him before. "You promised me. I did what I had to do. And what was that?" Her voice rose now, finally cracking. "What exactly did you do, Daniel?" He could feel the question expanding, stretching back months. The move to this quiet suburb. The sudden resignation from his firm. The way he checked the locks twice every night. The way he refused to talk about certain phone calls. He had told her it was corporate fallout. Legal disputes. Ugly but manageable. He had used words that sounded technical and harmless. He did not answer. The sirens arrived late. Too late to be useful. A neighbor must have called. 2 patrol cars rolled up with theatrical urgency, lights strobing across the calm facade of the house. Officers stepped out, hands near holsters, scanning for a threat that was already gone. Daniel slipped back into the role easily. Cooperative, shocked, protective husband. "We were in the kitchen," he explained. "It happened fast. I didn't see anyone." Elena stood a few feet behind him, wrapped in a blanket an officer had offered. She watched him speak, watched how steady he sounded, how reasonable. He even managed a small, strained smile when one of them assured him they would increase patrols in the area. The younger officer examined the bullet trajectory. "Could be random," he said. "Drive by. Happens sometimes." Daniel nodded. "Of course." Elena's lips parted. She wanted to say something. She wanted to contradict him. But the word random lodged in her throat like a splinter. When the officers left, the house felt altered. The kitchen window was boarded up temporarily. The air inside smelled like sawdust and adrenaline. Daniel poured her water. His hands were steady again. "We'll fix this," he said. "We'll get cameras, maybe move again." "Move where?" she asked. "Somewhere safer." "And how do you define safe now?" He didn't like the tone. "Elena." She stepped closer to him. "Tell me the truth. Was this because of you?" He held her gaze for a long time. "Everything is because of me," he said finally. It sounded like a confession. It was not. "That's not what I meant." "I know." Silence expanded between them. It was not the comfortable kind. It was investigative, measuring. "You said you handled it," she whispered. "I did." "Then why are we still being handled?" The words hit him harder than the bullets had. He turned away first. "I need to make a call." "Now?" "Yes." "To who?" He did not answer. He walked into the living room, phone already in his hand. She followed halfway, then stopped. She did not want to hear the other side of that conversation. She did not want confirmation. He stepped outside to the porch again. She watched through the broken glass panel in the door. His posture changed when the call connected. Shoulders squared, chin lowered. The version of him she had met at 25, ambitious and sharp, returned in his stance. "I told you it was done," he said quietly into the phone. "You said it was contained." A pause. His jaw tightened. "No. I don't care what message they're trying to send. My wife was inside." Another pause. Longer this time. "I don't want assurances," he said. "I want names." Elena could not hear the response, but she saw the shift in his face. Anger flickered, then something colder. "If you can't control it," he said slowly, "I will." He ended the call before the other person could respond. When he turned back toward the house, he found her watching him. The porch light cut across his features, dividing him in half. One side illuminated, the other swallowed. "Who was that?" she asked. "Someone who owes me." "For what?" "For keeping them alive," he said, and immediately regretted it. Her expression hardened. "Alive from what?" He stepped inside and closed the door behind him, as if that could contain the sentence. "Elena, listen to me. I made decisions, difficult ones. I protected us." "From what?" she repeated, louder now. "From consequences." She laughed again, but this time it bordered on hysteria. "This is a consequence." He reached for her shoulders. She pulled back. "Don't touch me like I'm fragile." "You are fragile." "No," she said. "I'm uninformed." The word hung there. He had always believed that withholding details was a form of care, shielding her from the ugliness of his work, from the compromises he had made. He had convinced himself that ignorance equaled safety. Now that illusion lay scattered across the kitchen floor with the glass. "It was a client," he began. "That's a start. He was under investigation. I facilitated a settlement. It prevented indictments. At what cost? Money, influence, favors. And someone didn't like that." She stared at him. "You helped a criminal walk free. I helped avoid a war." "With who?" He did not answer fast enough. "With who, Daniel?" "With people who don't lose quietly." The words chilled the room more than the broken window had. "And now?" she asked. "Now they're reminding me that I'm not untouchable. And, by extension, I'm not either." He nodded once. Elena felt something inside her shift. Not fear, not exactly. It was recalibration. The man she had married was still standing in front of her, but the perimeter around him had expanded, revealing shadows she had never mapped. "You don't get to decide what risks I take," she said softly. "I was trying to spare you. From reality? From me." That stopped her. He looked older suddenly. Not in years, but in weight. "You think I enjoy this?" he asked. "You think I wanted any of it to bleed into our home? Our home is already bleeding." He closed his eyes briefly. "I can fix it." "How?" she demanded. "By making another deal? By threatening someone? By escalating? If that's what it takes. And when does it stop?" "It stops when they understand that I will not be cornered." "And what about me?" she asked. "What do I understand?" He hesitated. "That's what I thought," she said. She walked past him, back into the kitchen. She knelt and began picking up shards of glass with bare hands, ignoring the sting. He moved to stop her. She shot him a look that froze him in place. "Don't," she said. "If I'm going to live inside your consequences, I at least get to feel them." He watched her bleed. In the distance, somewhere beyond the quiet suburb and the illusion of safety, a phone buzzed in another man's hand. A message confirmed what the bullets had not finished. Daniel Hale was still reactive, still protective, still predictable, and that meant he could still be used. The man holding the phone did not smile, because smiling would have implied pleasure, and pleasure made people careless. He simply read the confirmation twice, thumb hovering over the screen as if the words might change if he waited long enough. Daniel Hale had always been a creature of containment. You pushed on his walls and he reinforced them. You threatened his wife, and he traded pieces of himself to keep the structure upright. Predictability was not an insult. It was leverage. He typed one line, deleted it, typed another, and sent neither. Instead, he pocketed the phone and looked at the woman sitting across the room, who had been waiting in silence, as if she already knew her presence was part of the plan. She had her hair pinned back, face clean, posture straight. Someone who had been taught to look composed even when the world turned its teeth on her. "He'll move," the man said finally. The woman did not ask who, she just said, "And she?" "She'll wake up," he replied. "Or she'll pretend she did." The woman's gaze sharpened. "Don't underestimate the wife." "I'm not," he said, and there was an edge of respect in it. "I'm counting on her." Across town, Elena washed blood from her hands in the kitchen sink, watching pink water swirl down the drain like something being erased. The cuts were shallow, but they stung in a way that kept her anchored. Daniel stood behind her, close enough that she could feel the heat of him, but he did not touch her. He had learned, at least for the moment, that her body was not a prop he could rearrange to soothe himself. "You need stitches," he said. "It's fine." "It's not fine." She shut off the water and turned, palms held up. Tiny lines of red remained in the creases, like accusations. "Do you hear yourself?" she asked. "You say it's not fine the same way you said it's handled. Like the words are supposed to create reality." His eyes flicked to her hands. "I'm trying to help. You're trying to manage." She stepped around him, grabbed a dish towel, and wrapped it around her palm with a firm, almost angry pressure. "Helping would be telling me the whole truth, not the version that makes you look like a man with control." He swallowed. "I told you enough." "No," she said. "You told me what you wanted me to tolerate." He opened his mouth, then closed it. His instinct was to argue, to litigate language. He had spent his life winning debates by making other people feel unreasonable, but something in her face tonight did not respond to that. She looked too awake. "You should sleep," he said instead. "Sleep?" She stared at him. "Do you think my body has that setting right now? Then rest. Sit. I'll clean up." She watched him for a long beat, and in that pause, she realized how badly he needed her compliance. Not love. Not forgiveness. Compliance. A quiet wife meant a quiet home. A quiet home meant he could make calls, plot routes, construct safety. If she became unpredictable, his strategies frayed. "I'm going to ask you again," she said softly. "Who are these people?" Daniel's shoulders tightened. "I can't or won't." He looked away, jaw working as if chewing something bitter. "You don't want to know." "That's your favorite sentence. It's the truth." She stepped closer, forcing him to meet her eyes. "I want to know the thing that tried to enter our house through a window." He exhaled slowly. "They're not one group. It's a network. People who trade in influence, money, protection. They don't call themselves anything. They don't have logos. So, criminals." He flinched at the bluntness. "It's more complicated than that. It's always complicated when you're the one benefiting." His face hardened. "You think I benefited? You think I came out of that clean? You came out alive," she said. "And apparently someone believes you came out owing them." He stared at her, and for the first time she saw a crack that wasn't performative. Something like dread moved behind his eyes. He had always been afraid of losing her, but this fear was different. This fear was about being seen. "I did something," he said quietly. "I crossed a line. I told myself it was temporary, that I could step back when it was over. And now you can't." He didn't deny it. Elena felt the room tilt, not because of shock, but because her mind started reassembling old moments with new meaning. The late nights, the sudden cash transfer he'd brushed off as bonus adjustments. The time she'd found an unfamiliar phone in his briefcase, and he'd taken it from her with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. At the time, she had told herself marriage required trust. Now she wondered if it required willful blindness. "Are we safe?" she asked, and hated that she had to ask it like a child. Daniel's pause was answer enough. She laughed once, short and broken. "Say it." He looked at her as if he wanted to lie, but the bullet hole in the wall made lying feel absurd. "Not completely," he admitted. Elena nodded slowly, absorbing it like a diagnosis. "Then I'm leaving," she said. His head snapped up. "No, I'm not asking." "You can't," he said, voice rising. "That's the worst thing you could do." "Because it's dangerous?" she demanded. "Or because you can't control where I go?" His nostrils flared. "Because you'll be exposed." "I'm already exposed." He took a step toward her. "Elena, please." The word please sounded foreign on him, like a costume. She studied him, and something sharp inside her softened, not into forgiveness, but into grief. She had loved the version of him who never said please because he never needed to. That version felt powerful. Now she realized it had been arrogance. "Where would you even go?" he asked. "My sister." He shook his head immediately. "No, absolutely not. Don't bring this to her. So I should stay and absorb it alone. You're safer with me." Elena's eyes narrowed. "You were on the phone outside saying you'd take control if they couldn't. You're not talking like a man trying to keep us safe. You're talking like a man trying to win." Daniel's expression tightened. "If I don't win, we lose. Do you hear the way you talk?" she said. "Like everything is a game you can outplay." "It is," he snapped. "That's what you don't understand. These people don't stop because you ask. They stop because you make stopping more expensive than continuing." "And what happens when you make it expensive?" she whispered. "Who pays besides you?" He held her gaze. He knew the answer. She could see it. "You're going to sacrifice someone," she said. He looked away again, and that movement felt like betrayal. Elena backed up a step, suddenly cold. "I'm not staying here," she said. "Not tonight." Daniel's voice dropped. "If you leave, you tell me exactly where you are at all times. You don't talk to anyone. You don't post anything. You don't answer unknown numbers." She stared at him. "You're giving me rules like I'm a teenager. I'm trying to keep you alive. And if I don't follow them?" she asked. His jaw clenched. "Then you're making it easier for them." She heard the unspoken part, and harder for me. She could feel the cage forming, built from concern and authority welded together. "I'll pack a bag," she said. Daniel stepped in front of the hallway. "No." Elena stopped. "Move." "No," he repeated, firmer, and in his voice she heard the same steel he used in boardrooms and courtrooms. "You're not leaving." For a second, she didn't believe him. She waited for him to soften, to realize what he was doing. He didn't. The air between them tightened like wire. "You would stop me," she said. More statement than question. He swallowed. "I can't let you walk into." "Into what?" she demanded. "Into a world you created?" His face flickered with something like shame, quickly buried. "Elena, don't do this." "Don't do what?" Her voice shook now, rage pushing through fear. "Don't assert that I have a life outside your decisions?" He reached for her arm. She jerked back. "Don't touch me," she said, and the intensity in her voice made him freeze. They stood like that, two people sharing a house and suddenly realizing it was not shared ground. It was his fortress, and she was discovering she had been inside it as much as she had been protected by it. Daniel's phone buzzed on the counter. The sound was small, but it cut through them. He glanced at it reflexively. Elena saw the reaction and hated him for it. "Answer it," she said. "Let's see which world you're in." He hesitated, then picked it up. His thumb hovered. He did not want to answer in front of her. He also did not want to ignore it. The buzz came again, insistent. He answered. "Yeah." Elena watched his face change as he listened. His posture tightened, then went still. His eyes shifted away from her, focusing on something far away. "No," he said quietly. Elena's stomach dropped. "What?" she mouthed. But he didn't look at her. "No," he repeated, louder now. "You can't involve her." A pause. His face hardened. "Listen to me. That's not—" He stopped mid-sentence, eyes widening slightly. Elena could tell the person on the other end had said something that landed like a blow. Daniel's grip on the phone tightened. "Fine," he said through clenched teeth. "Fine. I'm coming." He ended the call and stared at the screen for a second too long, as if it might offer an alternate reality. Elena's voice came out thin. "What did they say?" Daniel looked up at her. His face was pale. "We have to go." "Who?" He hesitated, then forced the words out. "My father." Elena blinked. Daniel's father was a ghost in their marriage, a name that carried tension. A man Daniel visited twice a year with tight shoulders and returned from with headaches. Elena had met him once, years ago, and the man had treated her with polite distance, as if she were furniture Daniel had chosen and would eventually replace. "What about him?" she asked. Daniel's throat worked. He's in trouble." Elena stared. "Because of you?" Daniel's silence answered. Her chest tightened. "They went after your father." "They didn't go after him," Daniel said quickly, as if correcting her mattered. "They used him. They're holding something over him." "Like what?" Daniel's eyes flickered away again. "He has debts. Things in his past." Elena's mind raced. "Are they threatening him?" Daniel nodded once. "They want me to come to a meeting. Tonight." Elena's mouth went dry. "And you're going?" I have to. Daniel. Her voice sharpened. This is exactly what I meant. Every time you move, they pull something else into the room. He looked at her with something like desperation. It's my father. And I'm your wife, she said. I was standing in that kitchen when someone shot at our house. His eyes flashed. Do you think I don't know that? Then stop acting like you get to handle it alone, she hissed. You keep saying you're protecting people, but all I see is you making deals that drag more people into your mess. Daniel stepped closer, voice low and intense. If I don't go, they'll ruin him. Or worse. And if you go, she challenged, they'll ask for something else. And you'll give it. And then something else. And you'll call it protection. Daniel's hands trembled slightly. He clenched them into fists. You don't understand my father. Then explain, she demanded. Stop keeping everyone in the dark like it's a gift. Daniel stared at her, and for a second, it looked like he might say something real, something he had buried. His face tightened, and when he spoke, his voice was rough. My father taught me how to lie with a straight face, he said. He taught me that love is leverage, that if you can't control someone, you can't trust them. Elena's breath caught. He told me to marry someone who would be useful, Daniel continued, and the words came out like bile. Someone stable, someone clean, someone who could make me look normal. Elena felt the room spin. She stared at him, trying to decide if he was confessing or attacking. So that's what I am, she whispered. A costume. His eyes widened. No, that's not what I mean. It's what you said. Daniel flinched as if struck. He's wrong, he said quickly. He was always wrong, but he's still my father. Elena's hands shook. She wrapped her arms around herself, not for warmth but for containment. And the people you worked with, she said slowly. They know about him. They know how to pull that string. Daniel nodded, defeated. Yes. Elena swallowed hard. So we're going to your father's house. Daniel's head snapped up. No, you're not coming. I'm not staying here alone, she said. Not while you walk into something like that. It's too dangerous. Dangerous is being married to you and not knowing what that means, she shot back. Daniel's eyes narrowed. This isn't about your pride. Don't reduce me, she said, voice shaking with anger. I'm not a concept you can manage. If you're walking into a trap, I want to see it. I want to understand what you've built. You'll just get in the way, Daniel said. And the cruelty of it surprised even him. Elena went still. There it is, she whispered. The truth. I'm useful when I'm quiet. Daniel's face tightened. That's not. It is, she insisted. And I hate that a part of me still wants to help you. Do you know what that feels like? To realize you're addicted to protecting the person who keeps endangering you? Daniel looked like he wanted to reach for her, but he stopped himself, hands hovering uselessly. Elena, please, just... She cut him off. If I stay, it's not because you told me. It's because I choose. And if I go, you don't get to treat it like betrayal. Daniel swallowed, eyes dark. If you go, you might not come back. The words hung in the air. They were not a threat. They were a warning, and she hated that he might be right. Elena's phone buzzed then, like an echo of his. She hadn't realized she still had it in her pocket. She pulled it out. Unknown number. Her stomach tightened. Daniel's eyes locked on the screen. Don't answer. Elena stared at him. Why? Because it could be them. And if it is? She asked. Voice steady in a way she did not feel. Then I should hear what they want. No, Daniel said sharply. That's exactly what they want. The phone buzzed again. Elena felt a sudden surge of defiance. If she kept living inside Daniel's instructions, she would become exactly what his father had described. Useful, stable, controlled. She could feel that future closing around her like a hand. She answered, Hello. Her voice sounded too loud in the quiet house. Daniel moved toward her, hand half raised as if he might snatch the phone away, then stopped himself, breathing hard. A voice came through, calm and faintly amused. Elena Hale, it said, pronouncing her name carefully, as if tasting it. I'm sorry about the window. Elena's chest tightened. Who is this? Someone who prefers not to shout through glass, the voice replied. Are you alone? Elena glanced at Daniel. He stared at her, rigid, eyes blazing with panic and anger. No, Elena said into the phone. I'm with my husband. A soft chuckle. Of course you are. He likes to keep his valuables close. Daniel's face contorted. He mouthed, Hang up. Elena tightened her grip on the phone. What do you want? The voice remained smooth. A conversation, but not with you. A pause. Put Daniel on. Elena looked at Daniel. They want you. Daniel stepped forward and took the phone from her carefully, as if any sudden movement might break something. "Who is this?" he demanded. The voice on the other end changed slightly, less amused now. "You're late," it said. Daniel's jaw clenched. "Don't call my wife. You don't get to set rules anymore," the voice replied. "Not after you tried to disappear." Daniel's eyes flicked to Elena, then away. "What do you want?" "Your presence," the voice said, "and your cooperation. You'll come to your father's house. You'll bring what we asked for, and you'll come without police." Daniel's breath hitched. "My father's fine," he said, trying to sound certain. "Oh, he's alive," the voice replied, almost kindly. "For now. But he's nostalgic tonight. He misses you. He told us stories." Daniel's face hardened. "If you touch him—" "Daniel," the voice cut in, sharper. "You're in no position to threaten anyone. You're lucky we're still negotiating." Elena felt her stomach twist. Negotiating. As if human lives were terms. "What do you want me to bring?" Daniel asked, voice low. The voice paused, as if savoring the moment. "The file," it said. "The one you swore you destroyed." Daniel went pale. Elena's eyes widened. "What file?" she whispered, though she knew he wouldn't answer. Daniel's throat worked. "That file doesn't exist." The voice sighed. "Lying is a habit for you. But you're not as good at it as you think. You hid it. You kept it as insurance. You always keep insurance." Daniel's grip on the phone tightened. "If I bring it, my father walks away." "Maybe," the voice said. "But you won't." Daniel's eyes narrowed. "What does that mean?" "It means," the voice said softly, "that your father isn't the only person we can use." Elena felt a cold wave rush through her. She stared at Daniel, suddenly understanding what the voice was implying. Daniel's face turned toward her, and in his eyes she saw the exact moment he realized the same thing. This was not just about his father. It was about her. It had always been about her, because she was the clean thing he had built his life around. Daniel's voice cracked slightly. "Leave her out of this." The voice laughed once, dark. "You brought her into it the day you married her. You just didn't tell her what she was marrying." Elena's breath caught. Daniel's face twisted with something like pain. "You'll come," the voice continued. "You'll bring the file. You'll sit at your father's table like a good son. And you'll listen." "And if I don't?" Daniel asked, though he already knew. The voice remained calm. "Then you'll learn what it's like to watch something beautiful break because of you," it said. "And I think you're tired of that lesson, aren't you?" Daniel's eyes shut briefly. When he opened them, they were wet, but he refused to let the tears fall. "What time?" he asked. 30 minutes, the voice replied. "And Daniel? Don't try to be clever. Clever is what got you here." The call ended. Daniel lowered the phone slowly. The room felt like it had lost oxygen. Elena stared at him, heart pounding, and realized she was trembling all over. "Tell me," she said, voice shaking. "What file?" Daniel did not answer immediately. He looked at the boarded-up window, the bullet hole, the blood-stained towel on the counter. He looked at Elena, and in his gaze she saw exhaustion so deep it bordered on collapse. "It's evidence," he said finally. "Evidence of what?" "Of everything," Daniel whispered. Elena's throat tightened. "Everything what?" Daniel swallowed hard. "Names, payments, conversations, orders, proof. Proof that you did what you did," she said. "Proof that they did," he corrected. And the distinction mattered to him, even now. "I kept it because I thought if they ever turned on me, I'd have something to protect us." Elena's laugh was small and bitter. "So you built protection out of the same thing that's now threatening us?" Daniel's shoulders sagged. "Yes." Elena stepped closer, eyes locked on his. "Where is it?" Daniel hesitated, then looked at her, as if deciding whether to trust her with the location. He didn't want to. She could see that. The urge to keep her out was almost physical in him, but the call had changed something. The lie that she could be kept separate had died. "In the garage," he said quietly. "In the panel behind the freezer." Elena's stomach lurched. "You hid that in our house." "I thought it was safe," he said, voice rising slightly. "I thought no one knew." "And they do," she whispered. Daniel nodded once. Elena felt a surge of anger so sharp it made her dizzy. "You put a bomb in our home," she said. "And then you told me we were invisible." Daniel's face tightened. "I was trying to believe it." Elena stared at him, suddenly seeing how much of his life was built on belief. Not faith. Denial. He believed he could outmaneuver consequences. He believed he could keep separate compartments of his life from contaminating each other. He believed love could be preserved by withholding the truth. And now those beliefs were collapsing, one after another, and he was still trying to hold them together with language. "We're going," Elena said. Daniel's head snapped up. "No." "Yes," she said. "We're going to your father's house. Together." Daniel shook his head hard. "Elena, you can't. They already know me," she cut in. "They already used my name. They already called me a valuable. If you go alone, they'll have you in a room full of ghosts, and you'll do whatever they say to keep everyone alive. You'll trade pieces of yourself until there's nothing left, and then they'll come for me anyway." Daniel's eyes flashed with anger and fear. "You think you'll help? You think you'll fix it by being there?" "No," Elena said softly. "I think I'll stop you from pretending you're the only one who can decide." Daniel's jaw clenched. "This isn't about deciding. This is about survival." Elena's voice dropped. "Then stop trying to survive alone." Daniel looked at her for a long time. In his eyes, she saw the war between instinct and reality. His instinct was to lock her away, to keep her clean, to keep her as the proof that he wasn't the man his father shaped. Reality was that she was already stained. "You stay in the car," he said finally, voice rigid. "You don't get out. You don't speak." Elena stared at him. "You're still doing it." He flinched. "I'm trying to keep you alive," she finished, and there was no warmth in it. "Fine. I'll stay in the car, but I'm coming." Daniel swallowed hard. He nodded once, as if agreeing to something he hated. They moved through the house like strangers sharing a disaster. Daniel went to the garage, hands shaking slightly as he pulled the freezer away from the wall. Elena watched from the doorway, heart pounding, and felt a surreal detachment, like she was watching a scene from someone else's life. Daniel popped open the panel behind the freezer and pulled out a sealed envelope wrapped in plastic. He held it like it weighed more than paper. "This?" Elena asked. Daniel nodded. "Don't touch it." Elena's eyes narrowed. "Of course." Daniel shoved it into his jacket, then grabbed his keys. "We have 20 minutes, he said. Elena followed him to the car. The night air bit her skin. The street still looked calm, indifferent. She wondered how many monsters lived behind normal facades. How many men like Daniel walked around smiling while carrying sealed envelopes of other people's crimes. As they drove, Daniel's grip on the steering wheel was so tight his knuckles whitened. Elena watched his profile, the way his jaw jumped every time he swallowed. He kept glancing at the rearview mirror. "You think we're being followed," Elena said. Daniel didn't answer. His silence was confirmation. Elena's phone vibrated again. Unknown number. Her stomach dropped. She didn't answer this time. She watched Daniel's reaction. He didn't look. He couldn't afford to. "Daniel," she said quietly, forcing calm into her voice. "Your father, what did he do?" Daniel's eyes flicked to her, then back to the road. "It doesn't matter," he said. "It matters to me," she replied. "Because you just told me he taught you that love is leverage. So I need to know what kind of man we're walking into." Daniel's throat worked. "He wasn't always cruel," he said, and the hesitation made the word cruel sound too gentle. "He was ambitious. He wanted control. He thought fear was safer than affection." "And your mother?" Elena asked. Daniel's face tightened. "She left. Because of him?" He nodded once. "Because of what he did to her. Not physically," he added quickly, as if that mattered. He trapped her. He made her feel like she couldn't exist without him." Elena's stomach twisted. She glanced at him, the implication hanging between them like smoke. Daniel's eyes flickered. He knew she saw the pattern. "I'm not him," he said abruptly. Elena stared at him. "I didn't say you were," but they both knew she had thought it. They pulled into a neighborhood older and darker than theirs. Tall trees crowded the road, throwing shadows across the windshield. Daniel's father's house sat at the end of a cul-de-sac, large and quiet, its windows dark. It looked like a place where secrets could live comfortably. Daniel parked a few houses down, as if distance could protect them. He turned off the engine. For a moment they sat in silence, listening to the ticking of the cooling car. Elena's heart pounded so hard she could feel it in her throat. "Are you sure he's inside?" she whispered. Daniel swallowed. "He has to be." Elena's voice shook. "And if he's not?" Daniel looked at her, eyes dark. "Then this is bigger than I thought." He reached for the door handle. Elena grabbed his wrist. "Daniel," she said, and her voice held something raw. "If you go in there, and you choose him, over me." Daniel's eyes flashed. "Don't make it that simple." Elena's grip tightened. "It is simple. If you choose him, you're choosing the man who made you." Daniel's face twisted. "He's still my father, and I'm still your wife," she said, voice cracking. "And I'm sitting in this car because you told me to, like I'm a liability. I'm trying so hard not to hate you right now." Daniel stared at her, jaw clenched. His eyes glistened again. I don't know how to do this, he whispered. And for the first time his voice sounded small. Elena's breath caught. She felt the urge to comfort him, to reach for his hand, and she hated that urge. It felt like a trap inside her own body. Daniel pulled his wrist free gently. Stay here, he said, softer now. Lock the doors. If anything happens, Elena cut him off. If anything happens, I'll finally know what kind of marriage this is. Daniel flinched, then opened the car door and stepped out into the cold. He walked toward the house, each step heavy. Elena watched him go, the silhouette of her husband shrinking against the dark facade of his father's world, and she realized with a nauseating clarity that the bullets through their kitchen window had not been an attack. They had been an invitation. And she realized with a nauseating clarity that the bullets through their kitchen window had not been an attack. They had been an invitation. Daniel did not knock immediately. He stood on the walkway for a few seconds, staring at the dark door as if it might speak first. The house looked intact, untouched, almost peaceful. That was what frightened him most. Violence, he understood. Stillness meant planning. Elena watched from the car, fingers digging into her palms. She had locked the doors, but the lock felt symbolic. If someone wanted her, a thin layer of metal would not matter. She scanned the mirrors, the street, the houses. No movement, no headlights, just quiet. Daniel finally stepped forward and rang the bell. The sound echoed inside the house, distant and hollow. A light flicked on upstairs. Daniel's heart began to pound harder. He had not prepared for the possibility that his father might open the door alone, confused, unaware. He had not prepared for normalcy. Footsteps approached. The door opened. His father stood there in a robe, gray hair uncombed, face lined but alert. Too alert. His eyes locked on Daniel with something that looked like irritation, not fear. You're late, his father said. Daniel's stomach dropped. He scanned behind him quickly. No visible intruders, no masked men, just the dim hallway light and the faint smell of old wood and aftershave. Are you alone? Daniel asked quietly. His father's lip curled slightly. That's a strange greeting. Daniel stepped inside without waiting to be invited. The door closed behind him with a soft click that sounded louder than it should have. He looked around the living room. Nothing overturned, no signs of struggle. The furniture sat in its precise, old-fashioned arrangement. The grandfather clock ticked. Where are they? Daniel demanded. His father tilted his head slightly. Who? Daniel's jaw tightened. Don't do this. His father's eyes sharpened. Don't come into my house at midnight accusing me of things you won't explain. Daniel felt something twist inside him. He moved closer. You told them stories. A flicker passed through his father's eyes. Ah, he said softly. So you finally learned that silence doesn't erase history. Daniel's breathing grew shallow. They're using you. His father laughed once, low and dry. They're using you. Daniel's hand slid into his jacket, feeling the envelope like a live wire. They said you're in trouble. His father's gaze dropped briefly to Daniel's jacket, then returned to his face. Everyone is in trouble, he said calmly. That's the nature of living beyond your means. Daniel's voice rose. What did you tell them? His father's expression hardened. I told them what they already knew, that my son thinks he's smarter than the men he works with, that he believes he can keep leverage without being leveraged. Daniel felt heat flood his chest. You betrayed me. His father's eyes went cold. You betrayed yourself the day you thought you were better than the system that fed you. Daniel took a step forward. They threatened you. His father shrugged slightly. Threats are a form of conversation. Daniel stared at him in disbelief. They're using you to get to me. And you're using me to feel justified. His father shot back. You always needed an enemy to make your ambition look moral. Daniel's jaw clenched so tightly it hurt. They want the file. At that, his father's composure cracked for a fraction of a second. His eyes sharpened, calculating. So you kept it. Daniel said nothing. His father nodded slowly. Of course you did. You were always cautious. Always afraid. Daniel flinched. Afraid? Yes, his father said. Afraid of losing control. Afraid of being dependent. Afraid of being seen as weak. Daniel's breathing quickened. You think this is about weakness? His father stepped closer, lowering his voice. It's always about weakness. You built a life around the idea that if you held enough secrets, no one could corner you. But secrets rot. They attract attention. Daniel's hand tightened around the envelope. They called Elena. His father's eyes flickered with interest. Did they? Daniel's chest tightened at the casual tone. They know her name. His father studied him carefully. Of course they do. Daniel stared at him. You told them. His father did not deny it. The realization hit Daniel like a physical blow. You gave them her name. I gave them context. his father corrected smoothly. They already knew you were married. They just needed to understand what she means to you. Daniel's vision blurred with anger. She means nothing to them. She means everything to you, his father said quietly. And that's what matters. Daniel took a step back as if struck. You used her. His father's expression softened in a way that felt more dangerous than anger. You taught them how to use people, Daniel. You showed them what you value. You flaunted your stability, your perfect house, your perfect wife. Daniel's voice shook. I was trying to build something clean. His father smiled faintly. You can't build clean on a foundation like ours. Outside, Elena stared at the dark house, pulse racing. She had seen the light flick on upstairs, and then the silhouette of Daniel through the front window. She could not see his father clearly, just movement, no other shadows, no visible guards. It looked almost normal. That terrified her more than chaos would have. Her phone buzzed again. She stared at the screen. Same unknown number. Her chest tightened. She hesitated only a second this time before answering. Yes? She said, voice low. You stayed in the car, the voice observed. Elena's stomach dropped. She looked around wildly. Where are you? Close enough, the voice replied calmly. Close enough to see how your husband handles his past. Elena's heart pounded. If you're watching, why not just come out? Because this part is important, the voice said. This is where he decides who he is. Elena's breathing grew uneven. What do you want from him? Truth, the voice said softly. Or at least honesty about what he's willing to lose. Elena swallowed. And if he gives you the file? A pause. Then we'll see what he's really afraid of. Elena's eyes burned. You're playing with people's lives. A faint laugh. Your husband has been doing that for years. Inside the house, Daniel stared at his father, rage and confusion colliding. They're not here, he said slowly. No, his father replied. So, this was a test. His father did not answer immediately. He walked past Daniel toward the bar cart and poured himself a drink with steady hands. You were always dramatic, he said. Always assuming someone else was orchestrating you. Daniel's breath hitched. You called them. I spoke to them, his father corrected. Why? Daniel demanded. His father took a slow sip. Because you tried to step away without paying your dues. Daniel felt the room tilt. You think I owe them? You owe the structure, his father said. You climbed it. You benefited. You can't just declare yourself separate. Daniel's voice cracked. I was protecting us. His father's eyes went sharp. You were protecting yourself. Daniel's grip on the envelope tightened painfully. They threatened you. His father smiled faintly. I can handle threats. Daniel's anger flared. You can handle them? You handed them my wife. His father's face hardened. Don't pretend you didn't already. Daniel froze. You brought her into a life she didn't understand, his father continued. You let her believe you were clean. You let her trust you. Daniel's throat tightened. I love her. His father's expression shifted subtly, something unreadable passing through it. Love, he said quietly, is leverage. Daniel felt something inside him fracture. You don't believe that. His father's gaze held steady. It's the only version that survives. Outside, Elena's breathing grew faster. What are they saying? She whispered into the phone. Your husband is learning, the voice replied. Learning what? That he can't pretend to be both predator and protector. Elena's heart twisted painfully. If he gives you the file, will you leave us alone? The voice did not answer immediately. When it did, it sounded almost regretful. That depends on whether he gives it for the right reason. Elena's eyes widened. There is no right reason. There is, the voice said. If he gives it to save you, that's weakness. If he gives it to destroy us, that's strategy. If he keeps it, that's pride. Elena felt tears prick her eyes. You're making him choose between parts of himself. The voice softened. He built those parts. Inside, Daniel stared at his father in stunned silence. This isn't about them, he said slowly. This is about you. His father's jaw tightened slightly. Don't flatter yourself. You wanted me to come, Daniel said. You wanted to see if I'd bring it. His father did not deny it. Daniel's heart pounded. You wanted to know if I still trusted you. His father's eyes flashed with irritation. Trust is irrelevant. It's not, Daniel shot back. You told them about Elena to see if I'd choose her over the file. His father's composure flickered. You always needed a moral justification, he said quietly. I wanted to see which one you'd pick. Daniel's breathing grew ragged. You're using them to test me. His father's gaze hardened. I'm reminding you what you are. Daniel felt the envelope burn against his chest. I'm not you. His father stepped closer, eyes cold. You are exactly me. You just dress it differently. Daniel's chest tightened painfully. He thought of Elena sitting in the car, of the bullet hole in their wedding photo, of the sealed envelope hidden in their garage. He thought of all the times he had chosen silence over honesty because it felt easier. You don't get to define me, Daniel said, voice shaking. His father's expression sharpened. Then define yourself. Outside, Elena's tears finally slipped down her cheeks. What's happening in there? She whispered. Your husband is standing at a fork, the voice said, and he hates that there isn't a clean path. Elena wiped her face angrily. If he walks away from me to keep that file, I will never forgive him. The voice paused. Forgiveness isn't part of this. Inside, Daniel reached into his jacket and pulled out the envelope. He stared at it as if it might answer him. His father's eyes locked on it. You kept insurance, he said softly. Good. Daniel's hand trembled. This can destroy them. And you, his father replied calmly. Daniel's jaw tightened. If I give it to them, they'll bury it. Of course they will. And they'll own me. They already do. Daniel's chest constricted. If I keep it, they'll come for her. His father's gaze flickered. Probably. Daniel felt his breath stutter. You're not afraid. His father shrugged slightly. Fear is inefficient. Daniel stared at him in disbelief. They could hurt her. His father's voice remained cool. Then don't let them. Daniel's vision blurred. You think that's simple? No, his father said. I think it's inevitable. Daniel's anger surged. You don't care. His father's eyes hardened. I care about you. Not embarrassing yourself. Daniel let out a broken laugh. Embarrassing? You walked into their world, his father said. You benefited. You pretended you were different. Now you want to run and keep the spoils. Daniel felt something inside him snap. I'm not running. His father stepped closer. Then prove it. Daniel's breathing grew erratic. Prove what? That you understand the rules, his father said. Outside, Elena stared at the house, tears drying on her cheeks. She felt a strange stillness settle over her. The panic was still there, but beneath it was something sharper. Clarity. They're not inside, she whispered to herself. This is him and his father. Her phone remained pressed to her ear. You see it now, the voice said softly. Elena's jaw tightened. This isn't just about your network. No, the voice replied. It's about inheritance. Elena's heart pounded painfully. If he gives you that file, he becomes part of you forever. Perhaps, the voice said. And if he keeps it, he becomes your problem. Elena's breath caught. You want me to influence him. We want him to reveal himself, the voice corrected. Inside, Daniel's hands shook as he held the envelope. If I destroy it, he said slowly, no one has leverage. His father's eyes narrowed. And you lose your last shield. Daniel's chest heaved. Maybe I don't want a shield. His father's expression shifted, something like alarm flashing briefly. Don't be stupid. Daniel's jaw tightened. Maybe I'm tired of living like this. His father stepped closer, voice low and sharp. You think they'll respect surrender? I'm not surrendering, Daniel said through clenched teeth. Then what are you doing? His father demanded. Daniel's eyes flicked toward the door, toward the car where Elena sat. He imagined her alone in the dark, waiting, unsure if he would walk back out the same man. I'm deciding, Daniel whispered. His father's voice dropped to a dangerous calm. Then choose. Daniel stared at the envelope, heart pounding, and realized that no matter what he did, something would fracture beyond repair. Outside, Elena's voice trembled as she whispered into the phone. He's going to make a choice. Yes, the voice replied. And when he does, you'll finally know who you married. Elena closed her eyes briefly, bracing herself. Inside, Daniel took a slow breath and felt the weight of every lie he had told press down on him at once. He thought of Elena's blood on the kitchen tile. He thought of his father's cold lessons. He thought of the men waiting in the shadows of his life, amused and patient. And he realized that whatever he did next would not save everyone. The thought did not feel like wisdom. It felt like vertigo. Daniel stared at the envelope until the edges blurred, until it looked less like paper and more like a verdict he had been carrying in his chest for months without reading. His father watched him with a stillness that pretended to be patience, but Daniel could feel the calculation behind it, the same calculation that had once shaped every compliment and every punishment. The house was too quiet, like it was holding its breath to see which man would emerge. Daniel's fingers slid along the plastic seal. If I give it to them, he said, voice hoarse, they erase it. They erase me. They erase whatever line I thought I still had. He looked up, meeting his father's eyes. And if I don't, they erase her. His father's mouth tightened. You keep talking like there are only two options. That's your weakness. You're addicted to binaries, good and bad, safe and unsafe, clean and dirty. And you're addicted to pretending nothing matters, Daniel shot back. His father's eyes narrowed. Things matter. They just don't matter equally. Daniel laughed, sharp and humorless. That's your whole religion, isn't it? Priorities. He held up the envelope slightly. You want me to believe she matters less. His father did not blink. I want you to believe that your survival is the only currency that can buy anything. If you collapse, she collapses with you. Daniel's chest tightened. That's what you told Mom. A flicker passed across his father's face. Not guilt. Irritation. Maybe. Like Daniel had grabbed a tool and used it incorrectly. Your mother was not built for this, he said coldly. She wanted to be loved like love is free. Elena's name sat in Daniel's mind like a lit match. He could see her in the car, locked doors, phone pressed to her ear, trying to keep her fear quiet so it wouldn't swallow her. He could see the blood on her palm and the way she had looked at him when he blocked the hallway, like she was watching him become someone else. He could feel the exact moment she had stopped believing his reassurance. That moment had been louder than the gunshots. He turned the envelope over in his hands. How much did you tell them? He asked. His father's gaze held steady. Enough. Daniel's stomach churned. Enough to make them call her. His father shrugged. You wanted them to fear you, so you made yourself valuable. Then you added a wife. You built a lever, and then acted surprised when someone pulled it. I didn't build her, Daniel snapped. She's a person. His father's eyes sharpened. A person you concealed the truth from. A person you kept in the dark because it was convenient. Don't pretend your motives were pure. Daniel's throat tightened painfully. The anger he had been using as armor began to crack, and beneath it was something softer and uglier. Shame, not because he had been caught doing something wrong, but because Elena had been right. He had not just protected her, he had used her as a sanctuary from himself. He exhaled slowly. They want me to bring it out into the open, he said, more to himself than to his father. They want me to show my hand. His father nodded once. And then they'll decide whether to cut it off. Daniel's eyes flicked toward the window. Outside, the cul-de-sac looked empty, but emptiness could be staged. He felt watched even through the curtains. He imagined men in a car down the street, engines off, faces lit by phone screens. He imagined the voice on Elena's phone. Calm. Amused. Familiar with this kind of suffering. Daniel's father moved closer, lowering his voice. You came here thinking you were walking into their trap, he said. But you're walking into yours. You brought the file. You brought fear. You brought your wife in the car like a hostage you're guarding. Daniel's jaw clenched. I didn't bring her. She refused to stay. His father's eyes softened in a way that felt like a blade disguised as silk. She refuses because she senses weakness. Women leave when they smell weakness. Daniel flinched. Don't talk about her like that. His father's voice remained calm. Or she refuses because she's stronger than you expected, and that makes her dangerous. Daniel's heart thudded. Dangerous to who? His father's gaze didn't waver. To your illusions. Daniel felt the words land and dig in. He realized his father wasn't afraid of the network, or even of Daniel losing. His father was afraid of Daniel becoming someone he couldn't predict, a son who didn't follow the same script, a son who might choose a different definition of strength. Daniel's phone buzzed in his pocket, startlingly loud. He pulled it out. No caller ID, just a blank screen and vibration like a pulse. His father watched him. Answer, he said. Or don't. But stop pretending you have time. Daniel answered. Speak. The voice came through, smooth as before. You're inside, it said. No question. Good. It means you can hear him when he disappoints you. Daniel's jaw tightened. What do you want now? A soft chuckle. Now? I want you to understand that you don't get to negotiate with silence. You negotiate with consequences. Bring the file to the table. Daniel glanced toward his father, who stood with arms loosely folded, like an audience member enjoying a play. There is no table, Daniel said. The voice paused, and when it spoke again, it sounded faintly pleased. There is always a table, it said. Sometimes it's literal. Sometimes it's your wife's throat when she swallows her anger to keep loving you. Daniel's stomach turned. Leave her out of it. Bring her in, the voice replied. That's what you did. We're just acknowledging it. A pause. Put your father on. Daniel's lips parted, then closed. He didn't want to. He also didn't know what refusing would cost. He moved the phone slightly toward his father. It's for you. His father took it without hesitation. Yes, he said, and the single word carried familiarity that made Daniel's skin crawl. The voice on the other end spoke. and Daniel couldn't hear it, but he watched his father's face. His father remained composed. Then his eyes narrowed slightly, not with fear, but with annoyance, like someone negotiating terms he expected to control. "You're being impatient," his father said. "He's here, isn't he?" He paused. "No, she doesn't come inside. That's not necessary." Another pause, and Daniel saw the smallest shift in his father's jaw. "No, I'm not bargaining. I'm advising." He listened again, then said slowly, "Fine, you can say it, but you'll regret the spectacle." He handed the phone back to Daniel, expression unreadable. "They want her to come inside," his father said simply, as if describing weather. Daniel's chest tightened. "No," his father tilted his head. "You can say no. They'll just make yes happen elsewhere." Daniel stared at the phone. It buzzed again in his hand, like the person on the other end had refused to wait for his permission. He lifted it to his ear. "No," he said, voice sharp. "She stays in the car." The voice sounded mildly disappointed. "Then I'll speak to her directly," it said. "Since you're busy with your father." Daniel's blood ran cold. "Don't." "I already am," the voice replied calmly. "You should really stop saying don't. It's not persuasive." The line went dead. Daniel's heart slammed against his ribs. He turned toward the front door, already moving. "Elena," he whispered under his breath like a prayer he didn't believe in. His father's voice followed him. "If you run every time they tug her leash, they'll keep tugging." Daniel froze at the door. He turned back, eyes blazing. "She's not a leash." His father stepped closer. "Then stop acting like she is the only thing that keeps you human." Daniel's breath hitched. He wanted to hit his father. He wanted to shake him until the cold philosophy fell out of him. But violence would be too clean, too simple. It would be an action he could justify. What he needed to do now felt messier. Outside, Elena's phone vibrated, and the number on the screen was still unknown, still empty, like a mouth without a face. She had kept the call open out of stubbornness, as if hanging up would be surrender. Her hands were trembling. She stared at the house, at the lighted window, at the silhouette that had shifted. And then her phone rang again, insistently. She answered because she couldn't not. "Stop calling me," she said. And her voice sounded steadier than she felt. The voice came through, intimate now, almost gentle. "You're doing well," it said. "Most people cry first." Elena's throat tightened. "What do you want?" "A look at you," the voice replied. "Not the picture Daniel carries. The real you." A pause. "Come inside." Elena's chest tightened. "No." The voice chuckled softly. "You sound like your husband." Elena's fingers dug into the phone. "If you want him, talk to him." "I am," the voice said. "But you're the part of him that tells the truth when he can't." Another pause. "Come inside, Elena, or we'll bring the inside to you." Elena's breath caught. Her eyes darted around the street. Still empty. Still calm. The calm felt staged now, like a theater set waiting for actors. "What does that mean?" she whispered. "It means," the voice said softly, "that you're sitting in a car in a quiet cul-de-sac, and you believe quiet equals safe. I admire that innocence." Elena's stomach dropped. "Are you here?" The voice didn't answer directly. "If you stay outside, you'll watch Daniel choose his father again," it said, "and you'll hate him for it." A pause. "If you come inside, you'll watch him choose you and destroy his father." Another pause, and the voice smiled through sound. "Either way, someone breaks." Elena's eyes stung. "You're sick." "Maybe," the voice said, "but I'm honest." Elena swallowed hard, trying to steady her breathing. "What do you actually want?" she asked, and her voice cracked. "Why do you care which one of us breaks?" The voice's tone shifted slightly, becoming colder. "Because Daniel promised us something," it said. And then he decided his conscience mattered more than his word. A pause. "We don't punish conscience. We punish hypocrisy." Elena's mind raced. "Daniel promised you what?" The voice chuckled. "Ask him," it said. "He loves explaining his motives. He just hates explaining his costs." The call ended. Elena sat frozen, phone pressed to her ear long after silence returned. Her breath came in short bursts. She looked at the house again and felt her anger flare. Not just at the voice, at Daniel, at his father, at herself, for still wanting Daniel to run out and make everything okay, with the same authority that had made it not okay in the first place. Her hand moved toward the door lock. She stopped. Her mind flashed to Daniel's rules. Stay in the car. Don't speak. Don't get out. The rules now felt less like protection and more like erasure. Like he wanted her to remain a clean variable while he handled the dirty equations. She unlocked the door. The cold air hit her face immediately, sharp and alive. She stepped out of the car with legs that felt like they belonged to someone else. The street remained empty. The emptiness mocked her. She started walking toward the house. Inside, Daniel yanked open the front door just as Elena reached the bottom of the walkway. Their eyes met, and the shock on his face was almost painful. "Elena," he began, voice sharp with panic. "Don't," she said, and the word wasn't a plea. It was a boundary. She kept walking. "I'm done being managed." Daniel stepped down the porch steps quickly, meeting her halfway. He grabbed her elbow, and she flinched, but she didn't pull away. She stared at his hand on her arm, and then up at his face. "They called you," he said, voice low. "Yes," Elena replied. "And they told me exactly what you didn't. That I'm the lever." Daniel's grip loosened slightly, as if the truth burned. "Elena, please, I need you to obey," she cut in. "To stay clean? To be useful?" Daniel's face twisted. "No. I need you alive." Elena's eyes filled. "I needed you honest." He stared at her, and his gaze softened for a fraction of a second, and in that softness she saw what she had loved. She also saw how quickly it hardened again when fear touched him. "I can't do this with you inside," he whispered. Elena's breath hitched. "You mean you can't lie with me watching?" Daniel flinched. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "I'm going in," she said. "If you want to keep calling this protection, then protect me from being ignorant." Daniel's jaw clenched. He looked back toward the open door, toward his father's silhouette in the hallway. His father watched, still, like a judge. Elena followed Daniel's gaze. "He's part of it," she whispered. Daniel didn't deny it. That was enough. They walked up the steps together, slower than they should have. Like each footfall was a decision. Elena entered the house and immediately felt the shift in air. The smell of old furniture, stale liquor, a life built on control. Daniel's father stood in the living room, robe tied neatly, drink in hand, expression calm. "Elena," he said, as if greeting a neighbor. "You shouldn't be here." Elena's stomach tightened. "You mean I should be in the car like a good wife?" His eyes narrowed slightly, then softened again. "I mean, you should be somewhere safer." Elena looked at him sharply. "Safer from who?" His gaze flicked to Daniel. "From your husband's choices." Daniel's voice snapped. "Stop." Elena turned to Daniel, then back to his father. "You told them about me," she said. "You gave them my name." Daniel's father did not deny it. He took a slow sip of his drink. "You married into a structure," he said calmly. "Names are part of structures." Elena's hands trembled. "I didn't marry into anything. I married Daniel." His father's mouth tightened faintly. "That distinction matters to you," he said. "It does not matter to them." Elena's gaze hardened. "It should matter to him." Daniel's chest rose and fell quickly. "It matters," he said, but his voice sounded strained, like he was trying to convince himself. A sound came from Daniel's pocket. His phone buzzed again, insistent. Daniel pulled it out. No ID. Elena's throat went dry. "It's them," she whispered. Daniel answered without speaking first. The voice came through, audible enough that Elena could hear fragments without the speaker being on full volume. "Good," it said. "Everyone's together. It's like family therapy, but with consequences." Daniel's jaw clenched. "What do you want?" The voice sounded amused. "I want you to put the file on the table," it said, "and I want you to say out loud what it is." Elena looked at Daniel sharply. Her heart pounded. Daniel's hand slid into his jacket, fingers closing around the envelope. His father stepped closer, voice low. "Don't be theatrical," he said. "Just do what they want, and keep your head." Elena stared at Daniel's father. "You're telling him to hand over the only thing that can protect us." Daniel's father's gaze was cold. "Protection is temporary. Compliance lasts longer." Elena's breath hitched. "So you'd rather he be owned?" His father's eyes narrowed. "Owned men live." Elena's voice rose, trembling. "And what about the people they own them through?" "Like me?" Daniel's father's expression barely shifted. "Collateral is the price of survival." Daniel's hand tightened on the envelope. Elena watched him, and for the first time she saw how deeply his father's language had seeped into him. Survival, price, collateral, currency. Daniel had used softer words, but he had been speaking the same grammar for years. Daniel pulled the envelope out. Elena's breath caught. He held it up, staring at it like it might be his last chance to become someone else. "It's a record," he said into the phone, voice rough. "Payments, names, orders, proof." The voice hummed softly. "There we go," it said. "Now place it on the table." Daniel glanced around the living room. There was no table in front of him, just the heavy coffee table, polished and dark. He moved toward it. His father watched, eyes fixed on the envelope, with something like hunger. Elena's chest tightened. She stepped forward. "Daniel," she whispered, and her voice broke. "If you give them that, they own us forever." Daniel's eyes flicked to her. In his gaze, she saw something raw, something like apology. "If I don't," he whispered back, "they'll come for you." Elena swallowed hard. "They already are." The voice on the phone spoke again, calm. "Place it down," it repeated. "Then step back." Daniel lowered the envelope toward the coffee table, and time stretched. Elena felt her body tense, instinct screaming that something irreversible was about to happen. Daniel's fingers trembled, then his father moved. It was subtle, a step forward, hand reaching out, not frantic, but inevitable, like a man taking what he believed belonged to him. Daniel saw it and reacted faster than Elena expected. He yanked the envelope back, holding it against his chest. "No," he snapped. His father froze, eyes narrowing. "What are you doing?" Daniel's breathing grew ragged. "You don't get to touch it." His father's voice dropped. "Don't be sentimental." "It's not sentiment," Daniel said, voice shaking. "It's control." His father's eyes flashed. "Control is exactly why you should put it down." Daniel's lips parted, and Elena saw the war inside him. If he put it down, he surrendered. If he kept it, he endangered. The choice was a blade either way. The voice on the phone laughed softly. "Interesting," it said. "Your father wants it, your wife fears it, and you're still pretending you're the only one who gets to decide." Elena's eyes burned. "Who are you?" she demanded suddenly, loud enough that the question cut through the room. The voice paused, as if considering whether to reward her defiance. "Someone Daniel once asked for help," it said finally, and then tried to bury. Daniel went still, his face drained of color. Elena stared at him. "You know them," she whispered. Daniel's throat worked. "Yes," he said, barely audible. The voice continued, smoother now. "Daniel made a promise," it said. "He promised he would deliver something. Not the file, something else." A pause. "A man." Elena's stomach dropped. "A man?" Daniel's father's expression sharpened. "What is this?" Daniel's eyes flicked to his father, then to Elena. He looked trapped in the triangle between them. Elena felt her mind race, searching Daniel's past, his clients, his secrets. "You promised them someone," she repeated, voice shaking. "Who?" Daniel's jaw clenched. "It doesn't matter." "It matters," Elena snapped. "Because if you were willing to trade a person, then you've been living by your father's rules the whole time." Daniel flinched as if struck. The voice on the phone spoke with calm satisfaction. "Tell her," it said. "Tell her who you offered. Tell her what you promised to make it all go away." Daniel's hand tightened around the envelope until the plastic crinkled. His breathing became shallow. "I promised," he whispered. "I promised I'd bring them the one who wrote the orders." Elena's chest tightened. "The one who wrote the orders? For what?" Daniel's eyes flicked to the boarded-up part of his memory. Then he said it, and the words sounded like he was swallowing glass. "For the raid," he said. "For the arrests. For the deaths." Elena stared at him, stunned. "Deaths?" Daniel's voice shook. "It was supposed to be clean," he said, and his face twisted. It wasn't. Elena's mind reeled. She looked at Daniel's father, expecting shock, but his father's expression was almost bored, like he had heard variations of this story before. Elena's stomach turned. The voice on the phone spoke again, colder now. "Daniel promised us the author," it said. "The man who convinced Daniel he could play both sides. The man who taught Daniel that a signature can kill from a distance." Elena's throat tightened. "Who is it?" she demanded, and her voice cracked. "Who?" Daniel's gaze snapped to his father. Elena followed his gaze, and the room seemed to shrink around that simple motion. She looked at Daniel's father, and felt something inside her go cold. Daniel's father's eyes narrowed, and for the first time there was something like caution in his composure. "Don't be absurd," he said quietly. Elena's breath caught. "It's him," she whispered. Daniel's face contorted. "Elena." "No," Elena said, voice shaking, stepping back as if the air around his father had become toxic. "No, Daniel. Tell me that's not what you mean." Daniel's throat worked. His eyes were wet now, and he couldn't hide it. He looked at his father and then at Elena, and his silence was not consent. It was collapse. The voice on the phone sounded almost pleased. "There," it said softly. "Now you understand the inheritance." Elena's hands trembled violently. She stared at Daniel's father. "You signed orders that got people killed," she whispered. Daniel's father's jaw tightened. "You don't understand," he said, and the line sounded rehearsed, like every man who had ever justified harm. Elena's eyes filled with tears. No, she said. I understand perfectly. You taught your son that signatures can kill, and he promised to hand you over like a package. Daniel's father's eyes flashed with anger now. Real anger. He stepped toward Daniel. You would trade me, he hissed. After everything I gave you? Daniel's voice cracked. After everything you took. Elena's breath hitched. She looked at Daniel and saw him in a new light. Not just a liar, but a man who had been shaped by a father who treated people like pieces. Daniel had tried to escape that by building a clean life. And when the dirty life came back, he had reverted, offering a man to save a wife. A sacrifice he hadn't told her about. A sacrifice that made her complicit by proximity. Elena's voice shook. You were going to give him to them, she said, and she looked at Daniel with a mixture of horror and grief. You were going to sell your father to save me. Daniel's eyes squeezed shut briefly. I thought, he began. You thought you could keep it from me, Elena finished, and her voice broke. You thought you could make that choice alone. The voice on the phone spoke, calm and cutting. Now you all know, it said. So here's what happens next. Daniel will bring the file to the location we specify. A pause, and he will bring his father. Daniel's father's face went pale for the first time. No, he said, and the words sounded less like authority and more like fear. Elena's stomach dropped. Her breath came fast. Daniel's hand tightened on the envelope, and he felt the world tilt. The demand wasn't just a test now, it was extraction. If you refuse, the voice continued, we remove the wife first, not because she's the most valuable, but because she's the cleanest. Clean things make the best stains. Elena's throat tightened. Daniel, she whispered, and her voice carried something desperate and raw. Daniel's eyes snapped to her, and in them was panic, but also something else. A hardening. Not into cruelty, into decision. He raised the phone. If you touch her, he said, voice low and dangerous, I burn the file, every copy, everything. And I walk into daylight and take you with me. The voice chuckled softly. You don't have copies, it said. Daniel's jaw clenched. You don't know what I have, he lied. And Elena heard the lie and understood why it was necessary. The voice paused, and that pause was the first sign of friction. Bold, it said finally, but you're still negotiating from fear. Daniel's breathing was ragged. I'm negotiating from consequence. The voice softened, almost amused. Fine, it said. Then here's the compromise. Bring the file. Bring the father. And bring the wife too. A pause. Everyone together. No secrets. Elena's stomach lurched. No, she whispered, barely audible. Daniel's father's voice snapped. Absolutely not. Daniel's eyes closed briefly. He could feel the walls closing. He could feel the cost rising. If he brought Elena, he risked her. If he didn't, he risked her anyway. If he brought his father, he destroyed whatever remained of that relationship. If he didn't, he destroyed Elena's trust by choosing his father's safety over hers. No clean choices. The voice had promised that, and it was delivering. Daniel opened his eyes and looked at Elena. Get your keys, he said quietly. Elena stared, stunned. Daniel, get your keys, he repeated, voice shaking. We're not staying here. His father stepped forward, anger blazing. You are not dragging me into this. Daniel turned toward him, eyes wet and hard. You dragged me into it when you taught me that love is leverage, he said. You dragged me into it when you called them, when you gave them her name. His father's face contorted. I did what I had to. No, Daniel cut in, voice breaking. You did what you wanted, and you called it necessity. Elena's chest tightened. She watched father and son, the old script unraveling. Daniel's father looked suddenly older, not in wrinkles but in fragility. A man who had always believed he could outmaneuver consequences, staring at the proof that consequences had finally learned his name. Daniel's phone crackled slightly, still on. The voice spoke again, calm. Clock's running, it said. If you try to disappear, we don't chase. We punish. Daniel didn't respond. He ended the call. The silence that followed was thicker than before, because now it wasn't ignorance, it was awareness. Elena's hands shook as she reached for her purse. Her mind screamed to run, to flee, to escape the orbit of these men and their structures. But she also knew running without understanding would only make her a moving target, easy to corner. The voice had been right about one thing. She was clean, and clean things were easy to stain. Daniel turned toward his father. You're coming, he said. His father's eyes flashed with rage. You don't get to command me. Daniel's laugh was broken. You commanded me my whole life. His father's jaw tightened. You owe me. Daniel stared at him. I did, he whispered. And then you spent it. Elena watched Daniel's face as he spoke, and she felt something collapse in her. Not just trust, the fantasy that Daniel had been separate from his father. He wasn't separate. He was a variation, a man trying to be clean, while still using dirty tools. Daniel's father's voice dropped. If you hand me over, he said, you're dead anyway. Daniel's eyes glistened. Then maybe I'm tired of living like I'm alive. Elena flinched at the words. They sounded too close to surrender, too close to peace. But Daniel didn't look peaceful. He looked cornered and furious, like an animal deciding which limb to sacrifice. Elena stepped closer to Daniel, lowering her voice. You don't get to die as a solution, she whispered. Don't you dare make martyrdom your escape. Daniel's eyes flicked to her, startled. Her words hit something in him, because she was right. Dying would be clean. Dying would end the choices. And he wanted the ending too badly. He swallowed hard. I'm not trying to die, he said, voice rough. Then stop talking like it, she replied. If you do this, you do it to live with what you've done, not to avoid it. Daniel's throat tightened. He nodded once, small. His father watched them, eyes narrowed, and Elena saw his contempt flicker. He disliked this exchange because it wasn't leverage. It was intimacy. It was messy. It disrupted the clean calculus. Daniel moved toward the door. Get in the car, he told his father. His father did not move. You can't force me. Daniel stared at him, and Elena saw the moment he considered using physical force. The moment his father's teachings tempted him. Control through dominance. Daniel's hands flexed. Elena stepped forward, voice sharp. If you don't come, she said to Daniel's father, they'll take me. And then your son will either kill for you or die for you. Which outcome do you prefer? Daniel's father's eyes flashed. He looked at Elena as if seeing her clearly for the first time, not as a symbol of Daniel's normalcy, but as a person capable of speaking like this. He swallowed. You're manipulating me, he said quietly. Elena's lips trembled. I learned from the best, she replied, and the bitterness in her voice cut through the room. Daniel's father's jaw tightened. He looked at Daniel, and in his gaze there was something like a plea buried under pride. You're really doing this. Daniel's voice cracked. You did it first. His father's shoulders sagged slightly. He set his drink down with a careful clink, as if keeping control over tiny sounds mattered. Then he moved toward the door, robe still tied, face stiff. They walked out together. The night air hit them like a slap. Elena saw the street again and noticed, with a jolt, a car parked at the far end of the cul-de-sac that she hadn't seen before. Dark, engine off, too still. Her stomach dropped. Daniel saw it too. His jaw clenched. He guided Elena toward their car, one hand hovering at her back without touching. His father walked behind them, moving slower than his pride would have liked. As they reached the car, Elena's phone buzzed again, but she ignored it. She didn't need the voice to tell her they were being watched. She could feel it in the air. Daniel unlocked the doors. You sit behind me, he told Elena quickly, voice low. I'm not a child, Elena snapped. You're the target, Daniel replied, and the bluntness made her go still. His father stopped. I sit in front, he said sharply. Daniel's eyes flashed. You sit wherever I tell you. His father's face tightened. You don't get. Elena cut in, voice shaking. Stop. She looked at both of them, and her eyes filled. Stop fighting for control, like it's the only language you speak. If we survive tonight, it won't be because you won. It'll be because someone finally stopped pretending winning is the point. Daniel stared at her, breathing hard. His father looked away first, as if the words stung. They got into the car. Daniel drove. Elena sat in the back seat, directly behind him, heart pounding. Daniel's father sat in the passenger seat, rigid, staring forward like a man refusing to acknowledge fear. As they pulled away, the dark car at the end of the cul-de-sac started its engine and followed at a distance, deliberate and patient. Elena's throat tightened. They're behind us, she whispered. Daniel's eyes flicked to the rearview mirror. I know. His father's voice was tight. You're taking us to them. Daniel's grip tightened on the wheel. We're already with them. The road stretched ahead, empty and dark, and Elena felt the weight of the sealed envelope inside Daniel's jacket, as if it were a heartbeat she could hear. She stared at the back of Daniel's head and realized that the marriage she had thought she had was gone. In its place was something rawer. A man who could love and still trade people. A man who could protect and still cage. A man who had inherited a philosophy he hated and used it anyway. Daniel's phone buzzed again. He ignored it. The buzzing continued, relentless. Finally, he answered without taking it off speaker, eyes fixed on the road. Say it. The voice came through, satisfied. Good, it said. You're moving. Drive to the riverfront. Warehouse district. You'll see the lights. Elena's breath hitched. Daniel's father stiffened. And Daniel, the voice continued, bring the file into the building. Bring the father. Bring the wife. If anyone tries to run, we don't chase. We erase. Daniel's jaw clenched. We're coming. He ended the call. Elena's hands trembled in her lap. If we go in, she whispered, they'll take everything. Daniel's voice was rough. If we don't, they'll take you. Elena closed her eyes briefly, swallowing back a sob. She hated the arithmetic of it. She hated that she was now part of an equation she never consented to solve. She hated that Daniel's love for her was both her shield and her vulnerability. And as the city lights began to appear ahead, reflecting faintly off the river like scattered glass, Elena realized that the invitation had been accepted. The warehouse district sat like a bruise along the water, low buildings with broken signage and windows that looked blind. Daniel followed the instructions without speaking, jaw locked, eyes flicking between the road and the rearview mirror, where the dark car maintained its distance like a promise. Elena sat behind him, watching the tension in his shoulders, the slight tremor in his hands whenever the streetlights washed over them. His father stared forward, rigid, as if refusing to acknowledge that the world could ever treat him as collateral. They turned off the main road onto an access street lined with chain-link fences and stacked pallets. Ahead, a warehouse had lights on, not bright floodlights, but a steady glow leaking from high windows, as if the building were awake while the rest of the city slept. 2 vehicles were parked near the entrance, both dark, both unmarked. There were no men in the open, which made Elena's skin prickle. The absence of visible force was its own kind of force. It told them that resistance had been calculated and already dismissed. Daniel slowed and pulled into a space the way someone parks at a funeral. Careful, reverent, trying not to make noise. He turned off the engine. The silence inside the car expanded, filled only by the ticking of the cooling metal and Elena's own breath, too loud in her ears. Listen, Daniel said, voice low, and the word sounded like it carried 100 unspoken apologies. No sudden moves, no heroics. Just, stay close to me. Elena stared at the back of his head. Close to you is what got me here, she whispered. But she didn't move away. She hated that too. She hated the way her body still sought him like an anchor, even when her mind screamed that the anchor was dragging them down. His father shifted slightly. This is absurd, he muttered. A warehouse meeting. Like I'm some… Stop, Daniel snapped, without looking at him. If you can't handle being talked to like everyone else for once, don't speak. His father went still. Elena watched the side of his face in profile and saw something flicker there, something she hadn't seen earlier. Not anger. Fear. It was faint, but it was real, and the sight of it made her stomach tighten because it proved how thin his philosophy was when it was his own skin at stake. Daniel reached into his jacket and touched the envelope like a talisman. He didn't pull it out yet. He opened the car door and stepped into the cold night air. Elena followed, forcing her legs to move. The river smelled metallic, damp, a reminder of depth and things hidden beneath the surface. Daniel's father climbed out last, slower, robe cinched tighter, as if he could bind himself into dignity. A man stepped out from the shadows near the entrance, tall, hands visible, no weapon displayed. His face was half in light, half in darkness, as if the building itself had decided to frame him in that familiar division. He lifted his chin in greeting, not friendly, not hostile, professional. Daniel Hale, the man said. Daniel's jaw clenched. Where is he? He demanded. The man's eyes flicked briefly to Elena, then back to Daniel. Inside, he said. You brought what we asked. Daniel didn't answer with words. He patted his jacket once, and the man nodded as if that was proof enough. And the father, the man added, gaze sliding toward Daniel's father. Good. Daniel's father straightened. I'm not. Don't, Daniel murmured, and his father's mouth snapped shut. The man turned and walked toward the warehouse door, leaving it ajar, as if inviting them into a place that had never been meant for them. Daniel moved first, Elena close behind, and his father following with reluctant steps. Elena felt the threshold like a line you cross in a dream, and then realized the dream is not yours to wake from. Inside, the air was warmer, heavy with dust and old oil. The warehouse had been cleared in the center, leaving a wide open space, lit by harsh overhead lights. A metal table sat in the middle, bare except for a single chair on one side. Along the edges, shadows pooled between stacks of crates. Elena could feel eyes in those shadows, the presence of people who didn't announce themselves because they didn't need to. The walls held the faint echoes of machinery that used to work here, now replaced by a different kind of production. Pressure. At the table, A man sat already, hands folded, posture calm. His suit looked too expensive for the setting, and that was the point. He belonged everywhere. His face was familiar in the way you recognize someone from a photograph you've tried not to look at too long. Elena couldn't place him, but Daniel did. Daniel's steps faltered for half a second, and Elena felt his body tighten beside her as if the air had turned to glass. "Hello, Daniel," the man at the table said softly. Daniel's voice came out strained. "Eli." Elena's heart thudded. The name meant nothing to her, but it meant everything to Daniel. She felt it in the way he said it, like a word pulled from an old wound. Daniel's father went, still behind them. The man, Eli, smiled faintly. "You remember," he said, almost pleased. "After all your efforts to forget. You remember." Daniel's breathing was shallow. "Why are you doing this?" Eli leaned back slightly, eyes glinting under the harsh lights. "Because you asked me once to help you," he said. "And then you tried to bury me. That's a particular kind of insult." Elena's stomach tightened. She glanced at Daniel. His jaw was clenched so hard she could see the muscle jumping. He looked like he was holding back a flood. Eli's gaze moved to Elena, and the way he looked at her made her skin crawl. Not lust, not admiration, assessment. "And this must be Elena," he said, voice gentle in a way that felt practiced. "You're exactly what he chose." Elena's voice trembled, but she kept it steady. "I didn't choose any of this." Eli's smile widened slightly. "No," he agreed. "That's what makes it clean." Daniel stepped closer to the table, shoulders squared as if he could make himself larger than the moment. "You said you wanted the file," he said. "Here." He pulled the envelope out and placed it on the metal table with a controlled motion. The slap of plastic on steel echoed through the warehouse. Eli didn't touch it. He just looked at it like it was a familiar animal. "Insurance," he murmured. "You always did like insurance." Daniel's voice was rough. "What do you want besides that?" Eli's gaze slid toward Daniel's father, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop. "I want the author," he said simply. Daniel's father's face tightened. "This is—" Eli raised a hand slightly, and the word died in the older man's throat. The gesture wasn't threatening. It didn't need to be. It was a sign, and the room obeyed it. "You," Eli said to Daniel's father calmly. "You taught him how to sign his conscience away. You taught him that men are pieces. You taught him to call cruelty necessity. And then you thought you could retire into a quiet cul-de-sac and drink yourself to sleep while the consequences drowned others. That's not how this works." Daniel's father swallowed. "You don't know me." Eli's expression softened into something that looked like pity. "I know your type," he said. "And your type wrote orders that cost someone I cared about. So no, I don't know you personally. I just know the shape of your damage." Elena's stomach turned. She looked at Daniel, trying to reconcile this. As someone Eli cared about. A raid. Deaths. Daniel had said, "Supposed to be clean." The words rearranged themselves into a new story inside her mind. Daniel had tried to play both sides, and in the chaos, someone died, and Eli had been the person who watched that death become paperwork. Daniel's voice cracked. "Eli, stop. This is exactly it." Eli cut in, still calm. "You promised me you would bring him. You promised you would make it right. And then you tried to disappear into domestic life like that could wash your hands." Elena's eyes stung. "You promised him?" she whispered, looking at Daniel. Daniel's gaze flicked to her, and the shame in his eyes hit her like a slap. "I thought if I gave him my father, you'd be safe," he said, and the honesty of it was brutal because it confirmed her worst fear. He had been willing to trade a man his father to protect her without telling her he'd done it. Elena's voice shook. "So I was the reason you were going to hand him over." Daniel nodded once, small, broken. Eli watched this exchange with a faint, satisfied stillness, like he was letting them bleed into the open. "There," he said softly. "Now we have truth in the room. Truth makes decisions easier." Daniel's father's voice rose, brittle. "You can't just take me." Eli's gaze remained steady. "I'm not taking you," he said. "Daniel is giving you. That's the difference." Daniel's father turned to Daniel, eyes blazing. "You would do this," he hissed. "After everything." "Everything?" Daniel snapped, and the sound of his voice ricocheted off metal and concrete. "You mean after you taught me to lie? After you made love into leverage? After you called them and gave them Elena's name like she was a bargaining chip? That? Everything?" His father's face contorted. "I was protecting you." Daniel laughed, raw. "You were protecting your idea of me. Your investment." Elena's chest tightened as she listened. Part of her wanted to step between them, to stop the cycle. Another part of her wanted to watch it burn because the ashes might finally be honest. Eli leaned forward slightly. "Here's how this ends," he said, voice still soft. "Daniel gives me the file. Daniel gives me the author. And then Daniel walks away." Elena's breath caught. "Walks away?" she repeated. Eli's eyes slid to her. "With you," he added, almost kindly. "If you still want him." The words landed like a knife. Elena stared at Daniel, and for a moment she couldn't breathe. She could feel the pressure of the question expanding in her chest. If you still want him, as if want was a simple thing, as if love could be separated cleanly from what love had been used to justify. Daniel's voice came out tight. "You'll let her go." Eli's smile was faint. "She was never mine," he said. "You're the one who kept her trapped in ignorance. You're the one who made her valuable by pretending she was separate. Don't confuse my leverage with your cage." Elena flinched at the word cage because it felt too accurate. Daniel's father took a step back, eyes darting, searching for an exit that wasn't there. "This is extortion," he spat. Eli's gaze sharpened. "No," he said, and for the first time his calm cracked to reveal something harder underneath. "Extortion is what you did to your son. Extortion is what you did to people you never met with your signature. This is collection." Daniel's father's breath came fast. "Daniel," he said, and the name sounded different now, stripped of authority, edged with fear. "Don't." Daniel stared at him, and Elena saw something in his face that wasn't just anger. It was grief. A grief that had been buried under years of striving and resentment. Daniel had wanted a father who could apologize, a father who could look at him and say, "I was wrong." Instead, he had a father who could only plead for self-preservation. Daniel's shoulders rose and fell. "I don't want to do this," he whispered. Eli's voice was quiet. "Want has nothing to do with it." Daniel's eyes flicked to the envelope on the table, then to Elena, then to his father. The triangle tightened. Elena stepped forward, voice shaking. "What happens to him?" she asked. And she hated that she was asking. Hated that a part of her still wanted to be ethical in a room designed to punish ethics. Eli looked at her for a long beat. "He disappears," he said. "He loses the protection he's been living under. He faces what he wrote. Maybe he lives. Maybe he doesn't. That's the price of authorship." Elena's stomach turned. She looked at Daniel's father. The man looked suddenly small, robe hanging on him like an apology he would never speak. She thought of Daniel as a boy, learning to flinch, learning to smile on command, learning that love was earned by being useful. She thought of herself, stepping into that structure without knowing, and she felt something crack inside her, not into forgiveness, but into a bleak understanding. If Daniel handed his father over, Daniel would carry that weight forever. If he didn't, Elena would carry the weight of being chosen as collateral. Again, no clean choices. Daniel's father's voice dropped. "You're not a monster," he said to Daniel, and the line sounded like it had been rehearsed in his throat for years but never used. "You're not like them. You're not like me." Daniel's eyes filled. "You don't get to tell me what I am," he whispered, echoing his own earlier words. His father's lips trembled. "Then prove it," he said. Elena's breath caught at the irony, at the way the same challenge could mean opposite things depending on who spoke it. Daniel looked at Elena. His gaze was raw, pleading without words. Elena felt her throat tighten. She wanted to tell him what to do. She wanted to say, "Choose me." She wanted to say, "Don't become him." She wanted to say, "Don't do either," because both felt like poison. But she also knew that if she told him, she would be participating in the same leverage structure. She would be pulling the leash, just in the opposite direction. So she said the only thing she could that wasn't a command. "If you do this," she whispered, "you don't get to call it love." Daniel flinched. Tears slipped down his face, and he didn't wipe them away. His father stared at the tears like they were an insult. Eli watched quietly, as if savoring the moment of fracture. "Time," he said softly. Daniel's hand moved, not toward his father, but toward the envelope. He slid it closer to Eli, inch by inch, the sound of plastic on metal scraping across the room like a confession. Eli's eyes narrowed slightly. He reached out and placed his palm on the envelope, not opening it yet. "Good," he said. Daniel's father's breath hitched. "Daniel." Daniel didn't look at him. His gaze stayed on Elena. "I'm sorry," he whispered. Elena's eyes burned. "For what?" she asked, voice shaking. "For choosing me? For not telling me you were choosing me? For making me the reason you become this?" Daniel swallowed hard. "For making you live in my math," he said. And the line was so painfully accurate that Elena felt it like a bruise. Eli stood slowly, still holding the envelope. "Now the author," he said. Daniel's father took a step back reflexively. Two men emerged from the shadows, not rushing, just appearing, making it clear that resistance had been accounted for. They moved toward Daniel's father, like people collecting a debt. Daniel's father's voice rose, sharp with panic. "Daniel, if you let them take me, you'll regret it," he hissed. "You'll regret it when she leaves you anyway." Elena's stomach dropped, not because the words were true, but because they were meant to be. They were designed to split her from Daniel one last time. Daniel's father was still trying to wield leverage even as it collapsed around him. Daniel's jaw clenched. He stepped forward suddenly, placing himself between the men and his father. Elena's breath caught. For a second, she thought Daniel had changed his mind, that he was going to refuse, that he was going to fight. The room tightened. Daniel lifted a hand, palm out, not aggressive, just stopping the movement. He looked at Eli. "One more thing," he said, voice steady in a way that made Elena's skin prickle. Eli's eyes narrowed. "You're in no position." "I am," Daniel cut in, and the calm in his voice was unsettling. "Because you want the file to stay quiet. You want my father to disappear. You want me to walk away and not burn you in daylight." He swallowed. "I can still do that." Elena's heart hammered. She stared at Daniel. He was negotiating again, but the tone was different. Less panic, more clarity. It scared her because it sounded like competence, and competence was what had built this whole cage. Eli studied him, expression unreadable. "Speak," he said. Daniel's voice was low. "You don't touch her," he said, nodding slightly toward Elena without looking at her. "Not now, not later, not as leverage. You want to punish me? Punish me. You want to collect? Collect. But you don't call her. You don't watch her. You don't stain her because it makes you feel powerful." Elena's breath caught. The words hit her like a strange kind of gift and a strange kind of insult. A gift because he was drawing a line, an insult because he was still drawing it for her. Eli's mouth curled faintly. "You're asking for mercy," he said. Daniel shook his head once. "I'm offering you containment," he replied. "You keep her out of it, and I don't make this public. I don't make it messy. I don't drag you into daylight just to prove I can." Eli stared at him for a long beat. Elena felt the room hold its breath again. Finally, Eli nodded slightly. "Fine," he said softly. "Not because you asked nicely. Because you're right. She's not the point." Elena's stomach twisted. Not the point. Still a thing. Still an object in their language. But at least the object had been put down. For now. Eli gestured slightly. The two men moved again and grabbed Daniel's father by the arms. Daniel's father jerked, struggling, robe twisting, his face contorted with rage and fear. "Daniel," he shouted. "If you do this, you're dead to me." Daniel's expression didn't change. His voice came out quiet, almost gentle. "I've been dead to you," he said. "I just didn't realize it." His father's eyes widened, and for the first time Elena saw something like pain there, real pain, not just pride. It vanished quickly, replaced by hatred, but the pain had existed for a moment, and that moment felt like a crack in stone. They dragged Daniel's father toward a side door. His shoes scraped. His breathing came in harsh bursts. He tried one last time, twisting his head toward Elena. "You," he spat. "You'll leave him. You'll ruin him. Just like his mother did." Elena's chest tightened. She wanted to shout back, to defend herself, to spit truth at him. Instead, her voice came out small and steady. "No," she said. "He ruined me long before I knew his name." Daniel flinched, and Elena hated herself for the satisfaction she felt watching him feel it. Consequences mattered. They should. The side door slammed, cutting off the older man's voice. The warehouse seemed to exhale. Eli looked at Daniel again. "Now you walk away," he said softly. "And you live with it." Daniel nodded once. His face was wet. He wiped it with the back of his hand like a man ashamed of evidence. Eli slid the envelope under his arm. "You won't see him again," he said, not as a threat, but as a fact. Daniel's jaw clenched. "I know." Eli studied Elena. "You got what you wanted," he said, voice quiet. "Truth." Elena stared at him, trembling with exhaustion and fury. "Truth isn't what I wanted," she whispered. "It's what I needed to stop being stupid." Eli's smile was faint. "Good," he said. "Stupidity is expensive." Daniel stepped toward Elena, stopping a careful distance away, as if he no longer trusted his right to touch her. "Let's go," he said quietly. Elena didn't move immediately. Her legs felt heavy. She looked at the space where Daniel's father had been, and felt a strange, hollow ache. Not empathy for the man, but for the gravity of the act. Someone had been traded. A choice had been made. There was no way to pretend otherwise tomorrow. They walked out together, Daniel leading, Elena following, both of them aware of eyes in the shadows, watching them leave like witnesses. The dark car that had followed them was gone now, as if it had never existed. The river air hit Elena's face, cold and sharp, and she realized her cheeks were wet again, but she couldn't tell when she started crying. They got into their car. Daniel started the engine. His hands were shaking now that adrenaline had loosened its grip. Elena sat in the back seat again because she didn't have the energy to argue. The distance between her and Daniel felt symbolic, even though it was only a few feet of upholstery. Daniel drove without speaking for a long time. The city passed outside like a blur of indifferent lights. Elena watched his reflection in the rearview mirror. He looked hollowed out, like someone had scraped his identity with a knife. She wanted to hate him. She wanted to comfort him. She wanted to disappear. All three urges fought in her chest until she felt sick. Eventually, Daniel's voice broke the silence. "I didn't want you to see that," he said. Elena's laugh came out like a sob. "I didn't want you to be that," she replied. Daniel swallowed hard. "I thought if I kept you clean, you could pretend you were clean," Elena finished, voice trembling. Daniel's shoulders sagged. "Yes," he whispered. Elena stared out the window at the river, disappearing behind them. "You gave your father away," she said quietly. Daniel didn't deny it. "Yes. And you gave them the file," she continued. "Yes." Elena's throat tightened. "So what do you have left?" Daniel's grip tightened on the wheel. "You," he said. And the word was desperate, a reach for solidity. Elena closed her eyes briefly, swallowing hard. "Don't," she whispered. "Don't make me your proof that you're not him. I can't carry that." Daniel's breath hitched. "I'm not asking you to carry it," he said. "You always have," Elena replied, and her voice cracked. "Just by being here. Just by loving you. I carried your denial. I carried your lies. I carried the version of you that made sense. And now I'm carrying this." Daniel's eyes glistened again. "What do you want me to do?" he asked, and the question sounded like a child's, stripped of strategy. Elena stared at the back of his head and felt the fatigue settle into her bones. "I want you to stop solving your shame with deals," she whispered. "I want you to stop trading people, to avoid feeling what you did." Daniel's voice was rough. "I can't undo it." "No," Elena said. "You can't." Silence returned, but it felt different now. Not empty. Heavy with the weight of what couldn't be repaired by words. When they reached their house, the boarded-up window looked like a wound covered hastily with gauze. The street was quiet, but the quiet no longer felt safe. It felt like the pause after a storm when you know more storms are possible. Daniel parked and turned off the engine. Neither of them moved for a moment. Elena spoke first, voice low. "I'm not going inside," she said. Daniel's head snapped slightly. "Elena, I'm going to my sister's," she continued, and her voice shook but didn't break. "Not because I'm punishing you, because I need somewhere that doesn't smell like your decisions." Daniel swallowed hard. "They said they'd keep you out of it." Elena's laugh was bitter. "They said a lot of things," she replied. "And even if they do, you're still you, and I'm still me, and I can't sleep next to you right now without wondering what you'd trade if someone called again." Daniel's eyes filled with tears. "I wouldn't trade you," he whispered. Elena's throat tightened painfully. "You already did," she said softly. "Not in the way you think. You traded my right to choose when you kept me ignorant. You traded my peace for your illusion. That's why I can't stay." Daniel stared at her, breathing hard, and Elena saw him reaching for the old control, the old argument, the old authority. He didn't use it. He just nodded once, small and broken. "I'll drive you," he said. "No," Elena replied, shaking her head. "You don't get to transport me like a package. I'll take my own car." Daniel flinched, but he didn't argue. "Okay," he whispered. They got out. The cold air hit Elena's face again, and she felt strangely relieved by it. Daniel walked with her to the driveway where her car was parked. He stood a few feet away, hands at his sides, as if afraid that any movement might make her run. Elena opened her car door, then paused. She turned and looked at him. Really looked. The man she had married was still there, but he was surrounded now by the evidence of what he had done. She saw love in his eyes. She also saw the desperation that made love dangerous. "You're going to want to fix this," Elena said quietly. Daniel swallowed. "Yes, you can't," she replied. His face crumpled slightly. "I can try." Elena's eyes burned. "Trying isn't enough," she whispered. "Because trying is what you say while you still keep secrets." Daniel's voice cracked. "I'll tell you everything." Elena shook her head slowly. "It's too late for everything to be a gift," she said. "Now it's just debris." Daniel's breath hitched. "Elena." She raised a hand, stopping him. "Listen," she said. and the word felt like a mirror of his earlier command. But hers was softer. I loved you. I still do. That's the cruelest part. But love doesn't erase what you made me live in, so I'm leaving. Not forever, she added, and her voice wavered because she didn't know if it was true. Not as a punishment, as a boundary. Daniel nodded, tears sliding down his face now, unguarded. I understand, he whispered, though Elena wasn't sure he did. Elena got into her car and shut the door. Through the windshield, she saw Daniel standing in the driveway alone, shoulders slumped, face wet, looking like a man finally forced to sit with the consequence he couldn't negotiate away. She started the engine. As she pulled out, her phone buzzed once more. Unknown number. Her stomach dropped. She didn't answer. She let it ring, hands tight on the wheel, eyes fixed on the road ahead. The buzzing stopped. A text appeared instead, one line only. Clean things still stain, Elena. Remember that. Her breath hitched. She didn't respond. She deleted it, then realized deletion didn't erase the fact that it had entered her life. The stain wasn't digital. It was inside her now, in the way she listened for footsteps, in the way headlights behind her made her pulse jump, in the way she kept glancing at mirrors like they might reveal intent. At her sister's house, she parked and sat for a long moment before going inside. Her hands trembled on the steering wheel. She inhaled slowly, forcing air into lungs that felt too tight. She told herself she was safe here. Then she realized safety was now a story she would have to relearn how to believe. Back at his house, Daniel stood in the driveway until Elena's taillights disappeared. The silence around him was enormous. He felt the absence of his father in a strange, hollow way. Not because he missed the man, but because he could finally feel the space his father had occupied in his mind, a space filled with rules and fear and twisted love. Now that space was empty, and emptiness didn't equal freedom. It equaled exposure. He went inside alone. The boarded-up window loomed in the kitchen like a reminder that their home had been pierced. He looked at the bullet hole in the wall and the ruined wedding photo where his own face had been taken out. He sank into a chair and stared at the damage until his eyes blurred. He picked up his phone, thumb hovering over Elena's contact, then stopped. Calling her would be another attempt at control, another attempt to soothe himself with her presence. He set the phone down. In the quiet, Daniel finally admitted something he had avoided for years. The network wasn't the worst part. The worst part was that he had learned to speak its language so well that he had mistaken it for love. And now, with Elena gone and his father collected and the file surrendered, he was left with nothing but himself, stripped down to the question he had been running from. Who am I when I can't bargain my way out? Outside, the street remained calm. No sirens, no footsteps, just night. But Daniel knew that calm wasn't peace. It was surveillance that didn't need to announce itself. It was consequence, waiting patiently. Elena lay awake later on her sister's couch, staring at the ceiling. Her sister had asked questions, but Elena had given only fragments, saving the ugly core for a future she couldn't yet face. In the dark, Elena listened to every creak of the house. Every sound felt like a possible knock, a possible invitation renewed. She thought of Daniel alone in their kitchen, staring at the bullet hole, and she felt the ache of loving someone who had built a life out of lies because he had never learned another way. She didn't forgive him. She didn't hate him cleanly either. She lived in the messy space between, where love and rage shared a bed and neither slept. She understood now that leaving didn't end the story. It just changed who carried it in their body. When dawn came, pale and indifferent, Elena finally closed her eyes for a few minutes. Not in peace, but in exhaustion. Daniel sat in his kitchen and watched the light change, not moving, feeling time pass without being able to control it. Somewhere in the city, Eli opened the envelope and read names, and the names became new arrangements of power. And Daniel knew, with a cold clarity, that he had not escaped the structure. He had only paid a different price, and the price would keep echoing, in Elena's distrust, in Daniel's loneliness, in the space where a father had been and the space where a wife used to sit, in the way both of them would flinch when a phone buzzed in the night and wonder which part of their lives was